Hello everyone, my name is Radio Mike, this is The Inside of My Mind. I have to talk about the new Seinfeld comedy special, 23 Hours to Kill, which I watched last night, and I just have to say that this, to me, is not only the most refreshing comedy special I've seen in a very long time, but I just thought this whole thing was a perfect example of what comedy should be. And to me, personally, the true meaning of comedy and stand-up. And I wanted to discuss it a bit and give my reasoning for that here. I guess like we're in this weird space at the moment where comedy has kind of become this duality and this war between these people who want to observe like really ultra politically correct meanings and really censor their comedy in order to make it really appealing for a lot of people. And then you've got this other side, which are more like classic comedians who are like against the whole political correctness revolution and, you know, want to still use slurs from the past and still want to say offensive stuff for the sake of being offensive. And I just think that what Jerry Seinfeld, who I consider the master of stand-up comedy, what he achieves in this special is just this beautiful, beautiful neutral ground that is so deliberately inoffensive and so deliberately focused on the minuscule and the monotony of everyday life. Like there is just a universal appeal to this special because Jerry Seinfeld isn't trying to make any political agenda, nor is he trying to be outrageously offensive. He's literally just speaking to the minuscule experience of being a human and the small, small details of everyday life that we all experience day to day. Now, obviously, this would sound familiar because Jerry Seinfeld's popular self-titled TV show from the 90s, Seinfeld, was essentially this in a nutshell. Like, Seinfeld was a TV show that thrived on making little things big things and examining the smallest parts of human society and explaining why these small things such as social etiquette were so frustrating to so many people. When you think about Seinfeld, you think of these episodes of just general occurrences of day-to-day life, such as the Chinese restaurant and waiting in a line to get a seat at a table, or the parking garage where you spend your whole afternoon trying to find where you parked your car in a mall shopping center car park. And these things are so universally relatable and so inoffensive because they're just things about being human. And this is reflected so aptly in this comedy special where Jerry Seinfeld not only continues to pick apart the strangeness of social etiquette and the weirdness of people in general and the weird things that we do and the weird ways we handle things and picking apart points of conversation that are just all so familiar to all of our lives. And this general mastery of social observation and understanding of the stereotypical human being, I suppose. I guess what I really love about Seinfeld is just his general attitude of not really caring about anything. He certainly has and always has had this nihilistic or existential view on life, that pretty much everything we do is so meaningless and unnecessary, and that at the end of the day, nothing really matters because we're all gonna die. And while that is such a grim way of looking at the world, I think Seinfeld just unapologetically throws this out as his perspective on life. He even calls to attention his own privilege, his own wealth and fame, and the fact that he probably does have a better life than most of the people in the audience, but he still says that his life sucks. It just sucks marginally less than everybody else's. To Seinfeld, life just seems to be this never-ending, monotonous repetition of basic social tasks. And this is reflected so aptly in one of the earliest jokes he does, which is a classic joke of his. It's not a new one. However, most of this comedy special is new material, which is this idea of going out, that everyone talks about going out. We need to go out. We need to get out. And then as soon as people are out, their next thought is, well, now we've got to get going. Now we've got to get home. And I just think he's such a master of seeing these things that everyone notices but no one ever really talks about. Seinfeld isn't trying to make any political agenda. He's not trying to be racist or sexist or homophobic. He's just saying what he thinks about life, that everyone could think about life. He is just playing it so straight, and that is his expertise. He's very performative in his comedy, and the way that he portrays the things he's talking about is just unbelievably accurate and hilarious. I think in this world where everybody is so sensitive and people are really asking these questions about, oh, where is the line in comedy? To me, Seinfeld just kind of makes it clear that offensiveness and brashness is totally unnecessary, because it is these minuscule things in our lives that are the true fun and funniness. And I guess as an individual, I do kind of relate and appreciate and acknowledge Jerry Seinfeld's perspective on life. Like, I do think that most of the stuff we do is pretty meaningless, and I do think that it doesn't really matter because we are all gonna die. So I guess I relate to it a lot in that way, that I don't particularly find that much meaning from many things in my life. And I guess you can sort of end up in this hedonistic lifestyle where you're just living for the maximum amount of pleasure. But I think Seinfeld's key message is that you're not going to ever really find that maximum pleasure, because there is always frustration in every single thing you do. And I just find it so hilarious that this guy just gets so frustrated and so pedantic and meticulous about very small things that upset him. And it's not this typical route of this middle-aged, or I guess even late-aged male who's had a very successful career talking about how, oh, it used to be different when I was young. You used to be able to do this. You used to be able to say whatever you want. It's not that at all. It's literally so inoffensive and so tame. It's just a man talking about general frustrations of day-to-day life that everyone in the world, man, woman, child, whatever, has experienced. To me, this is what comedy is. It's finding the small things and making fun of them. One of the things that I personally have always really liked about comedy is acknowledging your audience and breaking the fourth wall and playing with the conventions of the medium you're working with. And I guess in this really weird meta sort of way, I think that Jerry Seinfeld, in his comedy, both in this special 23 Hours to Kill and in his TV show, and his entire career really, along with Larry David and his work in Curb and Seinfeld, I think these guys are masters of breaking the fourth wall of life, which is quite an interesting metaphor that I've put there. But I think by observing these things, figuring them out, and working with them, things that people notice but never talk about because they don't think that necessarily anyone else experiences them, I feel like that's what Jerry Seinfeld is doing, and that's why I personally find him so funny, because he is breaking and shattering this illusion that our lives are meaningful, and this illusion that everything matters, and that we have to be so obsessed with doing things when at the end of the day it is quite meaningless. I felt like this special was comedy for the sake of comedy. There was no point to it. It was a comedy show. It was a stand-up show about nothing. And naturally, that is so suited to this guy. I also really enjoyed the way he looked at some more modern technological breakthroughs that never got the chance to be examined in Seinfeld. There are a lot of bits in this about mobile phones and social media and texting, and how texting has essentially made talking face-to-face redundant. And again, it's taking these observations about these things and just turning them into pure comedy gold. There is a lot about relationships and being a parent and being married that I guess I didn't quite connect with because that's not my situation, but I didn't feel like that detracted from my experience at all. I still feel like the way he explains these things is so funny, particularly this line about how being married is basically just trying not to say "I hate you" out loud. At the end of the day, I want to see more comedians like this. I love the way Seinfeld unapologetically acknowledges his wealth. And he acknowledges that, yes, I'm richer than you, and yes, my life is probably better than you, and yes, I would probably want to be anywhere else but in this room performing comedy to you right now, and you all know that I could be. This really, it doesn't even come across as arrogant. He's not doing this thing that a lot of comedians do, and it's like, wow, you guys are the best ever, we're all friends. Like, he even has this line about, my favorite relationship, my favorite social interaction is I love you, you love me, and we never have to meet. And I just think his experience of being this mega famous person that doesn't particularly seem to know much or care much about fame and just wants to be a normal dude who happens to be famous and wants to interact with his fans, but in the most minimalistic way possible. There's something so paradoxically humble but arrogant about Jerry Seinfeld that comes across so well. And I think his ability to be honest with his audience in a non-pandering way and acknowledge the fact that he has tons of money and definitely doesn't have to be doing any stand-up comedy specials anytime soon makes him even more endearing. I absolutely loved this special. I think it is probably the best thing on Netflix that you could watch right now. I think that it is an unbelievable commentary on what it means to be a human being. But over and above all of that, I think that Jerry Seinfeld eventually, whether it's hundreds of years or thousands of years, I believe that Jerry Seinfeld will have a legacy not just as a comedian, but as a nihilist and existentialist philosopher. Because I do believe that Seinfeld's observations on life are so profound and so poignant that generations to come will seek wisdom from his comedy. That's what I think. Anyway, let me know what you think. Did you enjoy it? Do you want to see more comedy like this that is so just neutral? It's not offensive, but it's not trying to shove a political agenda down your throat. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know any other comedy specials that you think are similar. I'd also love to know that. In the meantime, support me by listening to my 2 podcasts. One is called 20th Century Boy. That's a solo podcast about my day-to-day life as a radio and podcast producer. The other one is called Popped with one of my best friends. We do more in-depth analysis of pop culture things that we're consuming at the time of recording. Sort of like this video, I suppose. And finally, I have a band. The band is called Release the Sounds. We do comedy punk music. Check us out. I reckon you'd love us. Finally, please subscribe to my channel. I do videos basically like this, talking about stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. My name has been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. I'll catch you later.
I hold you close the moment last I touch your skin. But I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time.